Greetings. Let's talk about gardens. Today, I'm going to talk about bulbs. Yeah, I know. Most of my listeners here come in because they want to know about fruits and vegetables, stuff they want to eat. And that's all good. I like stuff you can eat. I grow most of my own food. But I happen to like bulbs. And this is the time of year that we'd put in those fall planted bulbs. That was my brother Bob in Illinois that reminded me with an email this morning about bulbs. Sometimes living here in Hawaii, I sort of forget about them. But boy, I'll tell you, when I lived back in the Midwest, it's a long time ago. I don't know what they do over there anymore. I've been back to Illinois or Wisconsin in decades. But it used to be that the planting of bulbs a couple times a year, spring and fall bulb planting seasons, were really a big deal. I mean, it was rare on the street I grew up on that we didn't see some daffodils pop up or some tulips pop up. I remember looking out the windows in the soft spring rains back when the weather used to be nice and gentle and spring had come on slow and easy. Anybody remember those days? Yeah, right. I remember seeing tulips in the rain and watching them as a kid and just thinking how beautiful they were. It's my entire background. My mother, she planted bulbs. My brother and I helped her put in I don't know how many bulbs. We did it every year. It was an annual thing, and it was a cultural thing in the central Midwest. Around Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Traditionally, people planted bulbs. Over in Michigan, they even had, in Holland, Michigan, they had bulb farms. They used to raise tulips, daffodils, and such commercially. Basically, we got two different bulb seasons. There's a spring bulb season and a fall bulb season. And so you have that season that contains your tulips, your daffodils, your narcissus, your hyacinths, your crocus. Those are the main ones. All of those are planted in the fall. Pretty much no matter where you live, you put that stuff in right now is the time. Then you have another season that comes in spring, and that contains things like gladiolas, dahlias. Oh, dahlias, beautiful. Amaryllis, and a lot of more exotic type bulbs. They all go in during the springtime, and they will bloom during the summer. Now, some of those bulbs that go in for the summer blooming season do have really long seasons of bloom. The dahlia will continue all summer. On the other hand, daffodil will pop up for maybe about 2 weeks in the spring, look incredible and magnificent, and then just vanish. I think this is one of the reasons that I hear negativity about bulb gardening is that people say, oh, but the season is so short. Well, from my point of view, a garden that is always the same, evergreen plants with constant blooming, right? Which seems somehow or another to be the ideal in some people's mind, is my garden never changes its appearance. Actually, that's really kind of dull. It's boring. After a while, you probably don't even see the garden. I mean, it just goes right by you. It's the changes that happen in gardens that really catch our interest. When suddenly something comes into bloom or fall leaves occur, whatever it might be. It's the changes that catch our interest. So let's say you're growing roses, right? Well, let's say that during the winter you prune the roses back. You got 12-inch cane stubs sitting there and no leaves on them. Don't look like much, really. Look more like an alligator's back than a flower. So now, if you take daffodils as just an example, or tulips, and plant them in between your roses, come spring, when there's no flowers on the roses and maybe barely any growth at all, bam! Here you'll have this riot of color that comes up in what had been a dead space. It was snow all winter, frozen maybe, and then it thaws out in spring and it's still, dry grass and ugly sticks. Bang! Here come the bulbs. And oh, wow. What a relief. What a refreshing thing to have happen after a long winter. We used to take the bulbs. Actually, I would plant daffodils right in my lawn in Wisconsin. And I'd even spell things for the aircraft. It's kind of funny. You can say things they can only see from 20,000 feet with bulbs. Yeah, we'd plant the bulbs right in the lawn. And the lawn would be brown, from winter. And all of a sudden, bam, you got crocus and hyacinth and stuff popping up through it. And about the time that the grass really got growing and it got messy, then we could go out and we mow around the bulbs for a while and eventually just mow over the top. Let them disappear back into the lawn. This is the beauty of a bulb. They are almost indestructible when they're dormant. You take a bulb, if you say you had daffodil bulbs out there in the garden and they gave you a spring riot, but then you're going to go in and plant marigolds later on. Well, if you happen to dig up a daffodil bulb while you're working on it, big deal. Set it aside, put the marigold in, stick the daffodil back in next to it, and walk away. They're almost indestructible. And so bulb gardening is easy. They work in containers. If you have containers out there on the deck that you usually do flowers for summer, hey, put some bulbs in them. You're going to get stuff earlier. Most of this stuff is very tolerant to cold. The crocus, I think my first time I ever really noticed the crocus as a boy, I watched crocus blooming out of a snowdrift in April when we had a late snowstorm and snow on the ground here and there in the shadows, but crocus came right through it. I said, that is an amazing flower. I like that flower. Yeah, bulbs have this dynamic energy, and they're such surprises, and they're so durable when they're dormant and so on. I know y'all want to know about food. You don't want to know about flowers. Don't bore me with this flower stuff. I ain't got no time for flowers. I hear it a lot. It used to be me, that message. I remember when I first started gardening, I had no time for that stupid flowers. That was something my mom did. Well, over time, gradually, I started using wildflower cover crops in my garden when I was resting land. Well, when I went back to put in the tomatoes or something, wildflower seeds would pop back up again, and so I'd have wildflowers for weeds in between my vegetables. I'd leave some of them. And so I'd just let, Shirley poppies grow, California poppies, lupins, they'd pop up between the cabbages and the tomatoes. Folks would come by, they'd look at my garden, they go, oh my goodness, Bill, you plant flowers in between your vegetables? You can do that? And I'm going, oh, yeah, brings in the pollinators, I was lying because I didn't think it up. It just happened. But it was cool. And I started doing it because that's just what it did. It brought in more butterflies. It brought in the bees. It brought in all sorts of beneficial insects that needed nectar into my garden. And then they'd start eating bugs in the garden or pollinating flowers or doing whatever they were going to do. And so it became integral. But beyond that, food's food. It's good for you. You need it. Your body's got to have food. But what about the mind? The mind doesn't feed much on cabbages, only a bit. The mind feeds more on beautiful things. And so a flower garden is food for the psyche. Having flowers out there. When I wake up in the morning and the sun's rising over my hibiscus and they're sparkling, I'm going, oh, it's so gorgeous. I love flowers. Yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for them. So, anyway, it was my brother who did remind me about the bulbs. He's still hard at it, living in Illinois, still planting those bulbs like we used to when Mom was alive. But unfortunately, Bob put in 100 bulbs, and he went to work, and the squirrels dug up 50% of them while he was at work. Drive the poor guy crazy. He said the daffodils were still laying there, and he was able to put them back in the ground. They're poison, and apparently the squirrels knew that. They took all the crocus, though, and I don't know. I always assume crocus is not good to eat, but I don't really know. Never tried to eat one. Anyway, the squirrels figured they could take them, so hopefully they're going to kill them if they eat them. It's very annoying. I know what this is like, having plagues of squirrels. We had them in California, too. It's, Oh, I forgot to remind my brother when I answered the email, Bob, get some of that dry, granular squirrel repellent and spread it all over the top. They don't like stuff that's got like spoiled eggs, dry blood, and especially chili pepper. and they don't care for it. You put it over the top. They're gonna leave your stuff alone. That's protecting bulbs from squirrels is actually easy. It's not very hard since bulbs are not really natural squirrel food. He just has a complete population explosion of fluffy-tailed rats there. I know Bob's a marksman. He's still got his pin from the service. Maybe he ought to get to work. Well, whatever. Anyway, aloha. Plant more bulbs. You'll love them. They're good for you.